get the show on the road. Good evening. It's the start of the May 12th Transportation Advisory Board for the City of Longmont. Call to order, please. And let's do roll call.
Chair Lehner.
Here.
Board Member Wickland.
Here.
Vice Chair McKee-Burrows.
Here.
Board Member McInerney.
Here.
Board Member Kelkoffer.
Here.
Councilmember Yarborough. Oh, she's not it.
Not here.
She did say she was going to be here.
Okay. Great, thank you. And we acknowledge that Longmont sits on the traditional territory of the Cheyenne, Arapaho, Ute, and other indigenous peoples. We honor the history and the living and spiritual connection that the first people have with this land. It is our commitment to face the injustices that happened when the land was taken and to educate our communities, ourselves, and our children to ensure that these injustices do not happen again. All right. Approved minutes of the preceding meeting. Do we have any corrections or comments to the minutes of the April meeting? Can I get a motion to approve?
I will motion to approve the minutes from the April Transportation Advisory Board meeting.
Need a second? Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nope. Okay, we will move on. Phil, communications from staff?
We have Ben Ortiz here to give you a quick update on Bike to Work Day.
Chairperson Lehner, members of the Transportation Advisory Board, Ben Ortiz, Transportation Planner, good evening. So we do have some minor developments since the last time I presented this topic. But as I reported then, so Bike to Work Day will be taking place on Wednesday, June 25th from 7 to 9 a.m. It's going to be right here in the Civic Center Plaza, so on the west side between the Civic Center entrance and the library entrance. The Longmont Lions Club will be griddling their pancakes and sausages, just as they always have in the past. And we'll also have the Longmont Bicycle Company offering free tech support to riders this year, as they have in years past as well. So what's different this year is that we're actually going to be doing a superstation, and thanks to Kaylee, who's in the back, wave, hi Kaylee. She's recruited a lot of organizations to take part in this year's event, so it's going to be much more like a festival type event. And so we're going to have representatives from about a dozen organizations taking place. There will be tents and booths, and they'll be offering free things like coffee, for example. And then we'll also be holding a raffle, an early morning raffle in the 7 a.m. hour. So those riders that need to get to work by 8 a.m. will be able to do so. And then we'll have a second raffle right around 8:30 for the remaining riders. And so with that, I'd be happy to take any questions, but that's about the gist of it. Thank you.
Also, if it's okay with the chair, I just wanted to move some other items into that communications from staff, because we kind of played around with the agenda, as you can see tonight. And so many of our items and information are actually items from staff. So if the chair and the board would not mind, we'd like to move Ride Longmont Stats, Vision Zero, and Red Light Update into that category, if that works. And then we have a special guest from RTD, so
Sure.
I think that goes under information items where we can have some back and forth.
Okay. No, makes sense.
So some quick updates. I'll just have Kaylee come down really quick and talk about Ride Longmont Stats, just to kind of keep it in the order. Or maybe I'll have Cammie go first, sorry. Because I think Kaylee's not. Yeah.
There we go. Hello, board members. Nice to see you tonight. Thank you for being flexible with the agenda. I've got two topics. One's very short, just a Vision Zero update. I know Phil gave you some updates last month, a little more depth, but I just wanted to let you know the next task force meeting is going to be Thursday, June 5th from 6 to 7:30 at the senior center. We will be focusing in on kind of leveraging the social capital from task force members to really activate that with the action planning process. So it will sort of be, how can we activate our wonderful active task force member group that seems really committed. So we'll be focusing on how can we best leverage their connections and expertise for the action plan, which again, we hope will kick off formally late summer, early fall, and then wrap up this winter. So, but I wanted to give you an update on the speed cameras and radar cameras you probably have heard a lot about. Kyla and I have been working closely with the PD and some other departments. And so if this is a topic you all want to get more into, I just kind of brought some high-level highlights tonight, but it's really the police department running the program. So if we want to invite them back to get into more detail, I'll answer what I can tonight. But just some quick highlights to make sure that you are aware that we are officially in our warning period, which means by state law in Colorado, we had to give the public 30 days notice before tickets were issued. They were issued an announcement that the program was coming back in February. They were issued another announcement in March that says the cameras are coming soon. And at that point, they just did testing of the system, the live system. There were no issues or no warnings given at that point. But since April 28th, we've been in that formal warning period. So people have been receiving warnings, and tickets will begin to be issued on May 29th. That will be the 31st day after the warning was issued, so it will be live at that point. There's two different kinds of cameras that are readily available at this point. Will grow in number and in types, but right now we have the mobile camera, which can be relocated. It's currently up around McIntosh Lake between Breakwater and North Shore Drives. That's where it currently is. That can be relocated where it's needed. So if there's a school zone or construction or some sort of project that makes it make sense to have it be nearby, that can be relocated. There's also 13 locations in the ordinance that said this is where those permanent cameras will go. Those are not installed yet. Working with the contractor at this point to get that figured out, but the first locations will be 66 in Maine and 119 in Maine, being that is where we have the most crashes as well as the most severe. So it made sense to start with it, since we only have limited cameras, that's where they will be. So more coming soon on when those will get installed.
Will those have the 30-day warning when after they're installed, then they'll be 30 days?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there'll be a 30-day warning period for this trailer, which we're currently in, and then there'll be another one for the cameras. Though the city has been given ample, we've been doing more than the minimum as far as trying to keep the Longmont residents involved. So we've definitely hit the minimum of what state law requires as far as announcing them and letting people know they're coming. Just because I figured you might be interested, so far there's been 72 warnings issued in the 30-day warning period. So that was a lot less than what was popping up during the testing period. So hopefully that's good news that it is having a behavior change effect. And let's see. Some people, there's been a lot of questions around, they're driving by and they're getting very concerned because they see the trailer flash. Just so you all know, if you get asked by constituents, a flash does not mean a citation. It flashes for a number of different reasons. It does not equate to an automatic citation. So PD's been getting a lot of calls around, I got a flash, am I going to get a ticket? What do I do? So flash does not equal ticket. Just means it's working. It's doing its job. So I think those were the big highlights. So far, tickets will start being issued on the 29th. Oh, and if you want to find the webpage for where you can find all the official information that the PD has put out, you can just go to longmontcolorado.gov. And then if you search speed or radar, it's going to take you to that page. And that's where you can see all the official documentation. They have FAQs up there for folks. They have dates for folks. They have links for folks. You can find the Longmont Municipal Code on this. You can find the Colorado Municipal Code on this. So they've put together a nice info website for folks if you're interested in more. So that was my quick update on the cameras. So I'll answer what I can.
Just a quick clarifying question. So the 30-day notice window, is that anytime you move the trailer, or just because it's new equipment, the first time it goes into rotation, that's the 30-day period,
Yeah.
or every time it moves?
So the permanent ones, when they're installed, will each kind of have their 30-day notices, because those will come attached with permanent signage that says you're coming into a zone. They have some mobile signage, but I don't think the speed trailer is going to have a 30-day notice every single time they move it. This is the 30-day notice for that speed trailer. So they will have the signage that says you're entering a speed radar zone, but this is the radar, or this is the warning period for the community that says this can move around if you see it.
And then would you be able to have some examples of what the citation looks like?
Ooh, I know that is available. Yeah, so we can make that available.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thanks.
Has there been any feedback from folks that has been, I guess, one way or the other, positive, negative, that
Yeah.
that public safety has encountered?
As you can imagine, there's been both ends of the spectrum, yes. But it seems like the majority has been more positive, like this will be a good thing. Thank you for bringing this. We need to slow people down. There are those who think it's illegal. There are those who are, not aware of how it works. So they're out there. Unfortunately, I think, I'm sure Council member Shakita knows, is that the trailer was already vandalized. It already had to be repaired. It was, so some people are offering to pay people's tickets. They're trying to, I guess, impact the effectiveness of the program early on. But they're trying to address that. And overwhelmingly, it seems like there's more positive support for the benefit of lowering or slowing people down than there is those who are upset with the program. So that's good news.
Thank you for pointing out the website. I'm at the FAQs. There is one question that's not answered. How are the cameras calibrated? Can we make sure?
Yes, they added that today. It might just be an oops that it didn't get. So that was the
Okay.
newest one that was added today. I asked that they would add that because there was a lot of questions online about that. So I think comms team must have been
Okay.
working on it and just maybe didn't realize it got
Yeah.
published or needs to add it.
Yeah, the question's there, just no answer.
Okay, good to know. Yes, I'll let her know.
Thanks.
Cami, Longmont has a lot of miles of roads. Is there any thought to having more than one mobile speed camera?
Yeah, right now it was just about what budget was available in 25 to get us started. So the thought is that it will grow over time. I don't have that growth plan necessarily, but that we will have more than two locations for the permanent installs, as well as hopefully more mobile units in the future.
And just to clarify, the 13 permanent cameras, are those all intersection red light cameras?
Well, let me clarify. There are 13 locations that we can install permanent cameras. It doesn't mean we're going to have 13 locations with permanent cameras.
Would all the ones that are installed be intersection red light cameras?
Yes.
Okay, so there won't be any permanent speed cameras installed in between intersections.
The permanent cameras have the dual capacity to do red light running and capture speed, so they will have that function. The mobile trailers will be speed only.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you all.
So if you're okay, we'll move to public invited to be heard, and then we can have our guests come up during then. Okay. And you said it could be untimed, so.
Yeah, we could vote for that, or we could just,
Okay.
we just let it happen. I don't know if we need to vote for that.
Okay.
So we're going to, I guess, waive the 3-minute speaking period for our guest from RTD that wasn't able to make the meeting in April, if everybody's okay with that. I'm just going to take an assent from everybody rather than a vote.
Am I on?
Yep, you're on.
Oh. Okay. Well, my name is Karen Benker. I am your RTD director, and the District I covers Longmont, Erie, Lafayette, and Broomfield, and a little bit of Adams County and Weld County. First of all, thank you for the invitation, and I apologize for not being able to make it last month. Phil and I, we had just gotten back from a DC trip, and I don't know, the guy that was sitting next to me on the plane was doing a lot of sneezing, and so I think I caught something, and I'm still getting over it. But there is a lot going on. So please interrupt me if you've got questions. I can probably start with bus trips, bus routes, because there's an awful lot to talk right now about rail. As I think you all know, RTD really cut back service during the pandemic. Okay, so pre-pandemic, we had 106 million riders in 2019. Okay, currently we're at 65 million, so we're awfully close to being cut in half. And there's no doubt, at least in my opinion, that it is definitely about time for RTD to pick up the pace and to start putting service back on the street. So there's no doubt I am a thorn in their side. And as you probably know, Mayor Peck for years has been asking RTD to reinstate the LX. I used to take the LX when I was working in Denver. It was excellent service. And she has talked to other board directors over the years, and for a variety of reasons, they have told her, no, I'm sorry, we can't do it. I tend to be persistent, so I have talked, of course, to our general manager and to the board that I serve with. There are 15 of us on the RTD board. Excuse me. And I keep pushing. So the last piece of information that I've gotten so far is that the September run board will have hopefully at least 3 round trips of the LX. So the LX will go from Longmont. It's an express bus from Longmont to Denver, but it starts in Longmont. We'll probably stop at the very small Niwot Park and Ride, which is on 287 and Niwot Road. Probably stop, I'm guessing, at the Lafayette Park and Ride, and then perhaps Broomfield, and then head right into Denver. So it's very convenient. Right now we have the LD, which is not my favorite, primarily because, one, we don't have very many trips. So I'll be honest, when I go to Denver, in fact, I went to Denver today, I don't take the LD because I don't want to get trapped someplace because we don't have frequent trips. So, but the LD, what you do is you would take it then down to Broomfield Park and Ride and transfer to the Flatiron Flyer. Now, the Flatiron Flyer coming from Boulder has outstanding service. Okay, so they have service pretty much every 15 minutes. So at that point, you don't even need any kind of schedule. You just wait there and a bus comes by and takes you off to Denver. So that's actually how I've been taking transit now and heading to Denver now that I'm back on the RTD board. I'm hoping with the LX we'll start with the 3 round trips, but I intend to keep pushing because when I was commuting to Denver, we had many choices, especially during the commute times. So if you missed one bus, another bus might come 10 minutes later, maybe 20 minutes later. But and I should also add, generally when it was leaving Longmont, it was anywhere from 1/3 to 1/2 full. And then, of course, by the time you stop at some of the other cities, we had a full load. So when I hear from some of my fellow RTD directors that, I don't know if Longmont's got enough people to keep this trip going, I first of all remind them that we have a city of 107,000 people. We do want to go to Denver. Many people work in Denver, and yes, we can fill these buses, But of course, you have to provide the service first. And maybe I shouldn't be speaking out of school here. What I have found, okay, so I've been on the RTD board since January. I have previously served in my younger days from 92 to 2000. And that particular time period, we did a lot for the RTD district. What I'm finding now is that it's very difficult to get this $1.2 billion organization moving again. They're slow in providing service, upgrades, more trips. And I'm working hard to try to figure out how you can create some enthusiasm again in this organization, because it's a great organization. I mean, again, our budget's $1.2 billion. RTD itself has 3,600 employees. The private sector companies that we work with have got another 2,000 employees. So you can see we're a very, very large organization. Okay, so that's buses. Now, there's also other bus routes that I'm also working on. Erie, Lafayette, Broomfield, they all have their own needs and requests, which I am trying to work on. For Longmont, though, the mayor and I, we've had many conversations about trying to get the LX restored. And so it looks like, we're taking steps toward that, but it's still not going to be satisfactory. We have to keep working on it. Okay, rail. Okay, that's where everything is happening right now. And this is where I need your help. And this is what I passed out to you. I wrote this very late last night, so please forgive me if it's not exactly the way it should be. But I figured I'd try printing something so you can get an idea of what's going on and what we are going to be asking from our Longmont community. I'm sure you know, our mayor has been very, very, very active in Front Range passenger rail. And she has been working hard, very hard on that. She is on the executive committee for Front Range passenger rail. And every day she's working. And I will say, with Joan, we're either texting or calling one another, keeping each other apprised as to what her organization is doing and what RTD is doing. And so things are changing quickly. So here's where we are. Well, maybe I should step back, and I see some young people here that might not have been around in 2004. Okay, so 2004 was when Fast Tracks was passed, the tax measure. Okay, and some of you may have been 10 years old. Some of you may not have been able to vote yet, or maybe haven't arrived in Longmont. But in 2004, that current RTD board was able to come together and put a tax measure on the ballot. And it was for 0.4 of a cent, and it passed, including in Longmont. If I recall, I think in Longmont it passed with 59% of the folks saying yes, that they were willing to tax themselves. And I should also back up, the chair of the RTD board at the time was Mary Blue. So I don't know if any of you know Mary. Okay, well, Longmont history. Okay, so Mary had been a Longmont resident for, I think, almost all her life. And she became chair of RTD. And it was through her work that she was able to get the Northwest Rail Line put into the Fast Tracks proposal, which is the map that I have. And you can also tell my printer's running out of ink. But this is the map that the voters voted on to say, yes, these are the rail lines that we want to have built. So it passed. It had failed in 1997 when I was on the board. There were a number of reasons. One of them, the Northwest Rail Line was not included in that package. And so when we took a look at the vote in 1997, even Boulder County, which often will vote yes on tax increases, lost it by, I think it was like 20 points. I mean, it was not a good election. And so the difference between 97 and 2004 was when they added the Northwest Rail Line. And it was basically that line that was able to garner a very, very large turnout from Boulder County that said yes and pushed it over the line. So I guess I'm telling you these things because I wanted to let you know how hard Longmont has worked and how hard, this whole Northwest area has worked to get rail. So then what has happened, all the other areas have received their rail line. So we now have the N line that goes up to Adams County. We have the W line, which goes out to Golden, southwest to Littleton, southeast goes down to the Denver Tech Center. We have the A line, which goes to DIA, the airport. Okay, so all of these lines have been built. Now there are some small additions to to 3 of the rail lines aside from ours, but they're fairly minor. Like, for example, the N line that goes all the way through Thornton and North Glen needs 2 more stations. And so, but they do have their line, and by the way, the ridership numbers are very good. So here we are. An opportunity has come up, and we can, whatever your politics are, you can thank Governor Polis for pushing this, because he is a very strong rail advocate. So you probably saw last week, he was able to announce Mountain Rail, which he's starting, which will eventually go from Denver up to Craig through Steamboat. And that will be starting sometime next year, and then I think the full route will go to 2027. Okay. So in 2020, last year, he was able, along with our state legislature, to put together 2 financing mechanisms, fees that were raised. One is on rental cars, $3 fee on rental cars, and the other one is on oil and gas industry. So those 2 new fees opened the door for the possibility of building the Northwest Rail Line. RTD currently has $190 million in an account which they call FISA, which I think it's our savings account for fast tracks. Excuse me. And I should also add, over the past 20 years, I've been keeping track of this every year. You can tell I'm rather obsessive about this rail line. But over the past 20 years, I've kept track of all of the cities that are along the Northwest Rail Line and how much they have given to RTD under the fast tracks. Okay. So as of the end of 2024, all the communities, Longmont all the way down to Westminster, have given RTD $625 million. And all that money has gone to pay for all of the other rail lines. Okay. So here we are. We have a relatively new RTD board. They're learning as fast as they can, myself included. The governor's office has been very much involved pulling a proposal together along with Front Range Passenger Rail. And so come May 28th, we are going to have a very important vote at the RTD board. And I will tell you right now, I don't know if the RTD board is going to say yes, and that worries me. I have been meeting with many of the directors, meeting with many, many people to show them how the monies can come together to pay for this rail line. So the way it stands right now doesn't necessarily mean it's going to stay that way, but the plan for now is that there would be 1 track going from Denver to Longmont, and then, of course, up to Fort Collins, because that'd be part of Front Range Passenger Rail. And they're talking right now, and because Burlington Northern owns the track, and they also have to have freight go through at the same time, they're right now talking to Burlington Northern about 3 round trips a day. Now, I should also mention, when the voters voted on fast tracks, the our line, the Northwest Rail line, was supposed to get over 50 round trips. So we're calling this effort the starter service. And we're hoping to get the 3 round trips or more. And I also want you to know that, both our mayor and myself are working with, the governor's office and Front Range Passenger Rail to see if we can also get more trips. And what they're thinking is that there might be, and that's a huge question mark, Front Range Passenger Rail might consider going for a sales tax increase next November, just within their district. It wouldn't be all the state or even all of the metro area. And if that were to pass, then hopefully we might be able to double track and get more trips. And quite frankly, I'm a big believer of double tracking because, you have to be able to go both ways. And if you want to provide good service and build up your ridership, that's what you need. And so currently on the RTD rail lines that we have, we either have 15-minute service or half-hour service, pretty much all day. And, we would be talking about 3 round trips a day. But it would go from Fort Collins again through Boulder to Denver. So here's what I'm asking of you and of our community. There are a number of folks on the RTD board that feel that this project is too expensive. I was told by one of the board members this past weekend that who's going to ride it? And it's like, oh my, I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to ride it. And they just have a lot of questions because, quite frankly, and one of the questions that a couple of the board directors have asked me is, we haven't heard anything from this area. Do they want it? And so this is where I'm asking the Transportation Advisory Board and also other community groups and our taxpayers and customers, to contact the RTD board before May 28th. And I do have on this flyer, you can contact them with just one email, and then everyone will get your email. If you can come down to the meeting and talk to public invited to be heard, granted it's only 3 minutes, but I really think this board needs to hear from folks in this area so that they know how much we want it. We've been waiting for it for a long time. We've been paying for it. And RTD, in my opinion, my background has always been in government service, and I just feel strongly that government, if they come to the taxpayers and to the voters and they say, if I raise your taxes, this is what you're going to get in return. I truly believe that is what government owes the taxpayer. And so for those folks on the RTD board that were not there in 2004, do not know how hard everyone worked to get that measure passed. I think they need to hear from folks from this area as to how important this project is to them. So that's really all I have to say. Sorry I went over my 5 minutes. But if you've got any questions or comments, I'd be happy. And anytime you would like a full presentation from RTD, and we can come in with slides and talk to you more about ridership and some of the things like that, just let me know. We can bring folks up here, and you can ask questions directly from our staff. So
I think what we'll do is we'll start with Taylor and go down the line because I think everybody's probably got a question or two that they want to ask.
I'm lucky number one, huh? Well, first, thank you for coming, especially, sorry you were sick the last time because I know the first time RTD came, no board members showed up. That was 3 years ago on my term. And then last year, board members showed up, and it was a quite fun, at least, I don't know if anyone else remembers, it was a quite fun discussion to actually get responses from people in charge and actually voting on issues. Quick question is, where are the meetings?
It's at 1600 Blake Street. So it's just 2 blocks from Union Station. So, the way I get down there is, again, I drive to the Broomfield Park and Ride and pick up the FF, and it takes you right into Union Station. So it's very convenient.
Okay. And then what about someone who can't drive to show up? How late do the meetings go?
I'm not exactly sure how all of this is going to go, but we're supposed to have a special board meeting to go into executive session to talk about this at 3:30, and that's what I just found out 2 hours ago. We're supposed to start our regular meeting at 5:30, and so we do say Pledge of Allegiance like here in Longmont, and then we'll pretty much almost right away start in with public invited to be heard.
Okay.
So.
Okay. I'm just concerned about, I even ran into an old friend today who, visually impaired, can't drive.
Yeah.
How is he supposed to show up and get home?
Yes.
So that's always a problem.
Accessoride here in Longmont, it's limited, but that would be, something that, he could call to see whether or not he could get a reservation through Accessoride. But I know we have these RTD rules, I guess, which certainly can be changed if we so desire, that you have to live, I think it's within a half mile of a major RTD bus route to be able to qualify for Accessoride.
Okay. And then back to budget, RTD's budget is 1.2 billion.
Yes.
You mentioned, and how does that all get separated out? Like, where does the funding come from besides taxes?
Most of our funding comes from the sales tax.
Okay.
Okay. So, we now all pay.
And then do you know what Longmont pays in to
Yes.
that?
Yes.
Okay.
Last year,
Yeah.
looking at both the fast tracks piece and the base budget piece, Longmont paid RTD $21 million. Now, did we get $21 million in service?
That's my
No.
next question. Yeah.
No.
So it feels, what I would encourage you to tell your board is that it feels like we're subsidizing Denver and we get terrible service.
I do.
Okay.
In fact, I think this is sort of a fun little story. So Mayor Peck has been trying to meet with some of the RTD directors too, and so she called one, and he came up. He doesn't own a car, so he wanted, of course, to take RTD. So he got to Broomfield, then he missed the LD, so he had to Uber up to Longmont, and then to get back to Denver, he took the Bolt from Longmont to Boulder, and then he was able to get home. So it took him like 2 hours.
All right.
Yeah.
And then I think another kind of interesting point, and especially when you talk to state officials, I would always ran them because, RTD's budget is very, very low. That's not enough money for actual good service around the district. But then for everyone else to know, I had a friend look this up. CDOT spent $415 million for a 7-mile stretch of I-25.
Mm-hmm.
That shows where the state's priorities are to expand a lane, causing induced demand, causing more congestion, causing more pollution.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the EPA has been after Colorado in the Front Range because we have way too many ozone days now.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I work outside, so I can't avoid it.
Oh.
So we need better transit.
Yes.
And the state needs to start taking this seriously. Overall.
Yes,
So-
and I think they're starting because they did pass those 2 bills last year. Was what, Senate Bill 230 and was it 181? 184, yeah.
Okay, and then kind of the final question for now I have is, I know that this was, I believe, before your term started, but it was on the news, and I was kind of ticked at hearing it.
Mm-hmm.
I
Probably was too.
Nothing against the RTD director. I don't know her, but the previous board did give her a 67 out of 100. score, which, when I went to school, that was a D plus, and, not very good. But that did include a very substantial raise. And so I'm just wondering, priorities, priorities should be on getting more drivers, raising, because if you don't have drivers, you don't have at all a transit system. So
We're doing better with hiring drivers and mechanics. We need both.
Yeah.
But we still need more, including drivers on commuter rail and light rail. There are a lot of discussions that are going on with the board with regard to coming up with performance measures for our executive.
Yeah.
And so,
because for everyone to hear that was a $19,000 pay raise
yes,
for the director.
yes.
For a 67 out of 100. So,
No,
yeah,
we're aware.
yeah.
And so we are having a lot of conversations. We do have a committee called Performance Committee, and I believe at our retreat in June, that's going to probably be one of the major topics we talk about. Is how do we measure excellence?
All right. That's kind of it for me. Sorry. I'm always disappointed by RTD because even on this board, I've heard 3 years of a new bus route in Longmont and it still has not started. So
I know.
So it's
and
always frustration.
we've got mayors that are even mad at me, I think, and I've never met them because they don't trust RTD anymore.
Yeah.
And I understand that.
Yeah.
I do get that.
Yeah.
And that's actually, it was our mayor that talked me into running. I think,
And please tell the board that Longmont definitely cares about fast tracks. I was
think
14 advocating my parents saying you better vote for this, and 20 years later I'm still here. So
well,
yeah.
say that in your email or say that, come
Yeah.
on down,
Yeah.
and because my sense is the younger members of the RTD board, and by younger it's like 40 or under, sorry, they were not involved with the campaign. They don't remember this, and they don't know how hard people did work to make this happen, and so they don't understand how important it is to us even after 20 years. So,
All right, thank you.
Hi.
hi.
So I'm just wondering, why do you, in your opinion, so obviously the difference between Longmont and Boulder, similar population,
Yes,
vastly different service.
yes.
And in your opinion,
agree.
like, why is Longmont so under considered
Good
and Boulder
question.
is
Well,
well considered?
I can give you some of my opinion. One, I will say the city of Boulder and Boulder County are very, very aggressive and knowledgeable about all the different transportation sources. And, I don't mean to, Phil does a very good job. He does. But there's one of him, one. I just sort of sometimes imagine what the transportation staff must look like for the city of Boulder. Okay, good. We need more. And so I think one, they lobby well, okay, for many years, not just recently, but it's been going on for a long time, and they ask. And then, they'll push. They also find grant money, to start a service. And then, once it gets started, usually, you're going to continue providing that service. And of course, with having CU there, I think that's probably the biggest item that they use, because the students do travel. They have EcoPass. All the students have the EcoPass, so they can ride RTD, well, after they pay their school fee for free. And so a lot of them are going back and forth to the airport or to Denver or wherever. So you've got, forget what the student population is there. Is it like 50,000? 30? Okay. So I think that's a big part of it too. But no, I agree. for East Boulder County, I feel, again, in my opinion, we do not get our fair share of service.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. So how would you change that?
Oh, I am trying, Gina. Okay, so I'm one of 15. I have already talked to our general manager several times. The board all knows when I start talking about Longmont, they all know, Karen's asking for the LX. And I will continue. I mean, I swear almost at every meeting, every other meeting, I'm bringing up the need that my district needs more service, because Broomfield also needs service. They need local service. Erie is growing by leaps and bounds. Just a few years ago, there were 20,000. Now they're at 40,000. And I think when I met with them, they're talking very soon they'll be at 80,000 people. So we're a very fast-growing region. And I also don't think, they're looking at census numbers, but census numbers now are 5 years old, and you can see how Longmont has grown. So I am trying hard. But also, this is where I would ask that you voice your opinion to the rest of the board, because I'm just one of 15. We need 8 votes to pass something. So I would ask, that you, talk to them or email them or whatever.
Okay. And I'm going to be continuing on the same vein with my questions, pretty much. Of course, LX is great, or it could be. I used it many times when it was actually in service.
Oh, good.
We use public transport all the time when we can, but it's just too little, and it just feels like an afterthought all the time. Like, we used to have the LX, LNX, LSX.
Yes.
Like, we had all those routes, and then they just all stopped. And
Yes.
it's been 5 years now since they stopped, and it's just so slow.
I
And
agree. I agree.
It's frustrating, and I know many people who are frustrated. They used to take the bus down to Denver, and now they drive.
Yes, and I used to too. And so I'm fully agree with you. I'm finding, my years in government, I've always sort of sensed that, different local governments, or sometimes even different agencies, have got a certain kind of culture, and some are can-do, and some are, I don't know, let me think about it, and I think my sense is with RTD is because of the pandemic, so it hit, and the board at that time had to cut service in half. And then they had to live through that for several years. And, again, we're at that point now where, okay, pandemic's over. Yes, there are a lot of people that are still working at home. But on the other hand, too, the 16th Street Mall down in Denver is going to officially open at the end of this month in May. And so I do think once the restaurants come back, and I think more people will start to work in Denver again or wherever, and we'll need transit. And so I recognize that. I've been meeting one-on-one with a number of our board directors, and so far the 5 that I've met with all agree with me. So now we have to have that conversation, and see if we can get something on our agenda so that we can vote on it and try to get the agency to, get kick-started again.
Okay. Because, it's going to be years and years and years. And we.
Oh, don't say that. I'm hoping.
It has been years and years and years. And
yes.
We still have only 4 routes, 5? 4 local routes. And they are not good at all.
There's another thing that I should probably mention. This is now the second year the state legislature has passed a bill that basically wants to try to reform RTD. Okay, it was Senate Bill 161 this year. And so come August, the governor and state legislature is putting together a new accountability commission, okay? And their goal is to look at our governance structure at RTD and decide whether or not, if folks are satisfied with the way we are. In that bill, they also have quite a few benchmarks that they want RTD to meet. So, and one of the clauses in that bill does say that RTD must build the Northwest Rail Line. So I need to go back and reread it and remind my fellow directors, that we're being mandated by the state legislature, and this accountability committee is supposed to come back with a report at the end of January. So I don't know if that's going to be, something that the board is going to focus on and say, it's time for us to get moving, or, wait. So we'll see.
So Longmont paid 21 million, right?
21 million last
Yes.
year, yes.
That's a lot of money in my opinion. And I mean, just for Ride Longmont, that didn't cost nearly that much, right? I mean, it was only like
I think it was 300,000.
1 million.
Well, it's 300,000 a year
Yeah.
for 1 year or 3 years.
We received the partnership program from RTD for 1.15 million.
And then the total
So-
program is what, like 2 or 3 million?
3 million total for 3 years, so 1
Okay.
million a year, yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So, I mean, it seems like that 21 million that we're paying to RTD where we're not getting basically any real good service.
Mhm.
I feel like it would be better used just staying within Longmont and
Mhm.
doing service like Ride Longmont, because we
And-
could
and
get a
I-
lot more
I
out of
would-
that money.
I agree with you. And that's my message that I take to the rest of the board.
Yeah.
It's just hard to take an agency of that size and to get them jump-started again, get them moving, and get them to love their jobs. Because quite frankly, I think it'd be fun to work at RTD, designing routes and coming up with marketing strategies and, I don't know.
But is that something that Longmont could do? Could have its own routes not affiliated with RTD?
To have their own, to
Use-
pull out of the RTD district.
And just use that
That has
21
been
million
raised several
instead.
times, okay? Yes, it has been talked about. It would be very difficult, but possible. And quite frankly, that very well might be a message, if you're going to contact the RTD board, explain to them too, because I don't think they fully understand, how much money we give to RTD. And in fact, I just had lunch with one of the board directors and I mentioned that. I said, well, RTD, last year we gave them 21 million and, you could sort of see him like, oh, really? He didn't know that. And I think they need to learn these things, because the other thing I keep hearing is many of the board members want to try to quickly increase ridership, put those routes and trips back on, and get it moving. But some of the talk then I hear among some of the directors is, well, we're only going to pick the routes where we know we can get some really fast ridership numbers. Okay, well, that's often not the suburbs. And I don't consider Longmont a suburb. We're a satellite city. But I think they see us that way. And again, they're skeptical. A lot of the new folks are skeptical that, suburban folks are going to ride RTD and increase our ridership numbers. But again, they need to learn that we will. In fact, I was talking to a bus driver who worked for RTD for 50 years just last week. We were having coffee. So I was asking him about Broncos Ride and Rockies Ride. And he said, oh, yeah, I used to drive the bus in Longmont to Rockies Ride. And I was surprised, but he said, Longmont had at least 6 buses, that they brought up, to just bring folks down to the game. And that's quite a few folks that were taking Rocky's Ride. And so that's another thing that, Sky Ride is something that I've talked about and I really want to see. I would love to see Broncos Ride. I would love to see Rocky's Ride. And so I'm hoping we're going to have those conversations in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. I would also say any way that we can get to the airport from Longmont would be really nice by
Yes.
public transit, because right now there is, in my opinion, no good option.
I know. I
Like,
agree.
if you can't drive, then you're pretty much out of luck unless you want to be spending 2.5 hours on a bus, going to Boulder, then coming back out again.
Well, there's a couple of options. One is you can go down to 120th Wagon Road Park and Ride.
You have to drive though.
Yes, you do, with luggage. And unfortunately, what I've been doing is I'll drive to a park and ride on the A line and park my car there, and then I'll take the rail in. But yeah, going from Longmont to DIA is difficult.
Yeah. Is there ever going to be any option? Like it, right now, like even if you want to catch like the AB1, which is what I do, so I drive down to Flatiron
Okay.
and catch it from there. But there's no bus that goes from Longmont to there. So like you can't even take advantage of that route from Longmont. You'd have to go all the way to Boulder, catch it from Boulder, and then go down. Like there's no route that actually goes and stops at that station from here.
Okay.
But I
Yeah.
know lots and lots of people who do that from Longmont. Because they don't want to park at the airport, so they drive down there and they'll just catch the AB1 or AB2 now, I guess.
Yes, parking
Yeah,
at DIA is now $20 a day.
Yeah,
It's expensive.
it is. And the bus is a lot cheaper.
Yes. Yes.
But it would be really nice to have that as an option for people from Longmont, even if you can't do a direct route from here. Like at least connect to one that's already going.
And I know the AB Sky Ride in Boulder is extremely successful. And we just added service in January to that because it was standing room only going to DIA.
Yeah,
So-
I've done that many times.
Oh, my.
But,
Oh, I'm sorry.
but it's because lots of people from the north are driving down to that station
Okay.
or stations on that route. Because everyone I know that takes it to the airport now.
Okay. Well, when you're writing the RTD board, put that in there too.
Yeah, and my feedback on the BRT, because we had that presentation last month about the BRT.
The one on 119.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
It doesn't seem like really considering where people are going to be going in Boulder. Like it's just really going to the main station in Boulder. But a lot of people here in Longmont work at CU, for example. Like a lot of people working, and they commute all the time along that route. But there's still not going to be any way to get to CU using that route, because it's not like, because the J used to do that route and it used to stop right at main campus. But
Okay.
now the new route not going to go anywhere near main campus.
Okay. I will look into that then. We've got a couple of years, but now that I know, I can start asking questions.
Yeah, I brought it up with them last month. They were like, well, this one's pretty close. you still have to transfer, and it's
Oh, someone from RTD was here then. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know. Okay.
yeah, and they basically were like, well, it's pretty close.
Yeah, not good enough.
No, and it doesn't take into account like people from the east side or west side they don't have the route going either side because there's two different options and only one of them goes. Anyway, it just doesn't seem like it's well thought out for people who might be commuting to
Okay.
a major place like that.
Well, thank you for that, because I will ask questions. We'll see if we can look into that.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I've just got a couple questions. Try to keep it quick here. So, how many directors are affected by not affected, but involved with the Northwest Rail in terms of their district?
Yeah, that is a good question, because I keep looking at that map myself. Definitely our district. Lynn Geisinger's district has Boulder, okay? But then we also have Vince has Westminster. I also have Broomfield, so that's sort of part of that. And then Troy has They have some. He has mostly Adams County, but I think he's probably going to be more interested in the end. So I would say 3. And what I want to try to impress upon our board when we start our debating is that it's not just our area that's going to benefit from rail. It's going to be Denver too. So, if you look at the directors that also have Denver, they should be more interested in what they're talking about right now, because it's a two-way street. People work in Denver and people from Denver work in Boulder and Longmont. So,
well, with respect to the other lines, is it the same number of directors that are involved with, let's say, the W line and the A line, or is it more? In other words, you're saying essentially 4 directors are, let's say, working within the Northwest Rail area.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. Are those 4 in support of the Front Range project?
I think so. I still need to talk to 2 of them. And actually, those 2 have been on vacation for a little while.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And then I guess the other thing is with the, hopefully the increase with, and the addition of LX and, of course, the Flatiron Flyer, is there a thought in RTD that they're going to make that a trade-off with rail? In other words, well, now we have rail, we're not going to do this.
I don't know. I think at this point, if we do start with 3 round trips, we're going to need to continue bus service. If we were to get up to 50 round trips, then I think we would probably have a conversation as to how we would restructure the rail system, because then at that point you want to pick up people to bring them to the station. So, yeah, some of that would change. But at this point, I don't see it in the immediate future.
Okay. And then with the farthest, I guess, northern point being Fort Collins, I suppose what's the reaction and or temperature from Fort Collins as it relates to rail, the amount of money that's been spent, because they have to be in the same boat and they're a much bigger city.
They are. They'll be part of the Front Range Passenger Rail project, but at this point we're all so connected, the Northwest and going up to Fort Collins. My understanding is they're very open to it. I know the cities of Loveland and Berthoud have been trying hard to make sure to ask if they could have rail stations. And because Front Range Passenger Rail is supposed to be more of a faster rail line with fewer stops, I don't think some of those cities will be getting a rail stop, which will also be an issue.
Did residents of Loveland and Fort Collins pay into the...
Oh, well, they're not part of RTD, but they might be part then, well, they are part then of the Front Range Passenger Rail District.
Okay.
But at this point, that district does not have any taxing.
Sure.
Taxing.
Okay, great, thank you. Appreciate
Thank
it.
Karen, thank you for attending our meeting. I'd like to follow up on some of the funding issues.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that there will be new revenues coming from rental car fees and oil and gas fees.
Yes.
Are those revenues designated for particular rail projects?
Yes, good question. I've gone through those pieces of legislation and I've picked out those parts where it's... For both those pieces of legislation, they say these dollars can be used for either RTD, Front Range Passenger Rail, Bustang, which is, the Colorado Department bus system, and Mountain Rail. So this is where I've been also trying to talk to some of our board directors and our chair, saying, it's past time for us to sit down and start requesting specific funding streams from them, because the way that you can do it, and I've got my 3 different Excel spreadsheet scenarios, you would have to bond to get all of the dollars to build this. And so those revenues, those new revenue sources, would have to be stable and dedicated to RTD for us then to go to the bond market to pay the annual amount each year. And so this is where some of the items have not been nailed down yet, but it's going to have to happen in the next 2 months.
Is the expectation that with the new revenue streams from the Colorado fees, that Front Range Passenger Rail and Mountain Rail can happen without any federal funding?
Yes. In fact, well, that was also when Phil and I and others went to DC, well, a month ago. We don't know for sure what the new administration is going to do, but I think all the transportation agencies are waiting to hear what the next budget cycle is going to produce, federal budget cycle. But we're really not anticipating any additional federal funds, and we're just hoping our current federal funds won't be cut. But I should also mention, though, for Front Range Passenger Rail, which is actually then part of Northwest Rail, back in October, we did get $66 million from the Federal Rail Administration that the governor matched with another $27 million of state money. So we have approximately $100 million right now, again, earmarked. Now, we haven't received the $66 million, and we think we're going to receive that, but the organizations, the partnerships will be applying for additional federal funds, but I don't think anyone is going to assume that we're going to get any additional funding.
Understood. Thanks again. For anyone who's interested in exploring the history of fast tracks, I would recommend a podcast called Ghost Train. I believe it was produced by Colorado Public Radio.
Yes.
Very interesting stuff.
Yes, it is. But I should also add, things have changed since then, because now it's not just ending in Longmont. That rail line would go up to Fort Collins. So when you start thinking about some synergies, I'm thinking of CSU and CU. I suspect there's going to be a lot of, transportation between those two college towns, as well as some of the research that goes on in our corridors. So I tend to think the ridership numbers, if we had the capacity and we provided more rail cars and we provided more trips, I think we would have a very, very high ridership rail line. But the question then is there enough money for more trips, and how many rail cars are we going to have on each trip? And so, at this point, and Phil, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they're talking, 3 rail cars that can fit maybe 150 people? Okay. And so, how quickly will that fill up? And that's going to cap our ridership numbers. And so, it's sort of this catch-22 right now.
Karen, thank you so much for coming, and I'm glad you're feeling better. The project, from the last presentation, they said it was $650 million for the Northwest Rail, is what they said that the total cost would be. Okay. And does that jive with what you...
Yes, the total project from Denver to Fort Collins in current dollars, not inflationary dollars, is about $780 million.
And so I think they were just talking about from Denver to Longmont.
Yes.
Was $650
yes.
million. We've already collected $625 million.
Yes,
so
you noticed that. Yeah. So it sort of goes together, right?
So if we're doing the math and there's $190 million left in the bank account, it seems like, and a lot of people feel the same way, that we've been robbed $435 million from RTD because we've been paying into something, and the collective municipalities have been paying into it, and we still don't have something. And
Could you say that on May 28th to the
Absolutely.
RTD board?
Absolutely. I can definitely advocate for that because $435 million, that's a lot of money that went somewhere else for all the cities that contributed to it. So thank you for telling me how much was collected, because I was trying to ask or look for that number, and I was missing the $625 million,
Yes.
which is a lot. For ridership, thank you for making the comment about, eventually when we have these loads, they are full loads once they get to the endpoint. And one of the things that's hard to kind of bring across is we don't always have to have a full bus that picks up in Longmont and leaves Longmont to get to the endpoint. And I think what RTD is always wanting to figure out is how many people can we fit in Longmont to get to where it's going. And I appreciate your comment about that. And my thought is we need to increase service, and I think everybody on this board, we need to increase service first for our ridership to increase.
Correct.
Because if somebody knows that a bus is not reliable, we're not going to take the bus. And for me, I would love to take the bus. I used to work in Denver, and I would have to be in the car. But if you do the route planner now, it's either an hour and 45 minutes or over 2 hours
Yes.
to take the bus from Longmont to Denver. And I think that's just too much of an
Plus you
additional
transfer.
time.
Yeah.
Unless you transfer, correct. And then for the AB ridership, I asked in the last meeting, I wanted to see data for how many people are from Longmont that are on the AB route. Because if we looked at how many people are driving to Boulder, like a few of us do, there might be enough ridership from between Longmont, Lafayette, Louisville to then go onto Northwest Parkway to get a full ride into DIA. And I think I go to the airport enough for work, and my wife does, and I know enough people that would be interested in taking the bus to the airport, but right now it's just too complicated. And is there something that either you can do or we can do to advocate for getting a Skyride route back from Longmont connecting? Because right now, Longmont, Erie, Lafayette, Louisville, you have to go either back to Boulder or to 36 to jump onto the AB
Yes.
to get to the airport. And not just us, but Erie, Lafayette, and Louisville, it's complicated for them, and they're closer, in my opinion, to the airport. So what can you do to advocate for a Skyride for us, for them, to get to the airport?
I've talked to a couple, again, board directors, because you always need 8 votes, no matter what. And even some directors that are pretty close to a rail line, I was sort of surprised. They're saying it would be nice to have a Skyride that takes you directly to the airport. Because, like, for example, in Highlands Ranch, they're not that far from the southeast and southwest rail line. But what would happen is you would have to take your luggage, get on that rail line, transfer in Denver, and then you can go off to DIA. Whereas if you had Skyride, it's pretty convenient, very convenient. I mean, I used to take Skyride, but now there's... So because of so many of the rail lines that are now built, RTD has not been thinking about Skyride. In fact, when I was talking to one director this weekend, and I said, well, in Longmont wants Skyride. His question was, what's Skyride? And so, again, Boulder just received additional service in January for AB. And I'm thinking... all I can tell you is I'm going to continue to talk and push and, see what we can do. And if I can check back in 2 months and see if we've made any progress. But anything, too, that they need to hear from the folks, it's not just me, that this service is desired. Now, strange, I was just talking to some folks about the AB, and I was saying, well, I don't think anybody from Longmont would go west before they go east. But now you're telling me that folks are doing that.
One of the things that would be interesting is there's no way to know on the bus who is going where. But since a lot of people are parking at the park and ride, I don't know if they're collecting license plate information that says, hey, this car has been at the park and ride for more than 24 hours. They obviously are probably not going to Denver. Most likely they're going to the airport. What I want to see is I want to see data. And I don't know who at RTD can provide us data to show ridership and where people are going. Because I have a feeling, and a lot of people here have a feeling, that we're using the route, but we're connecting and we're getting lost because they're like, oh, the ridership is really high in Boulder.
Yes.
Let's keep adding service to Boulder. But it might be because of all of the surrounding towns that are feeding into Boulder.
Yes.
So I want to advocate for more data to see, where everybody's coming
Yes.
from. And the other thing that I would love to see, and thank you for commenting on those special game and event routes, those are great. Because when you're trying to drive downtown, even going to a Rockies game or a Broncos game, it's gridlock. And having the bus take you onto the HOV lane, less cars on the road, less pollution,
Yes.
less ozone, and those were great. And we're advocating for safe ridership versus assuming that people are not drinking and
Yes.
going to a game and enjoying themselves and then driving intoxicated.
Yes.
So thank you.
Yeah. Well, stay tuned. Maybe things go right. Maybe you'll hear about it in the next couple of weeks. But, it'd be great if we could approve Broncos ride because, football season's not that far away, quite frankly. It'd be nice if we could get organized for that.
And one last comment, I think, since there has been so much money that has been collected that hasn't been used, I think if we get all of these other services, like a bus route or a route better to Denver, I think it would be better for people to feel like they're not left out because since we're at the edge of the
Yes.
zone, people up in Longmont feel like they're left out.
I agree. I agree with you.
Thank you, Karen.
And it's one of the reasons why I ran. And you're just trying to figure out how to go about making it happen. And believe me, I think about it every day, for many hours every day, trying to figure out, how you can get your votes, how you can present your case, and how, am I talking to the right person? Can they do something for Longmont and Broomfield? So, yes. But again, hearing from the folks from the area is huge. So that would help.
Thanks, Karen.
Yeah, I should keep it.
Hi. Thank you for taking the call from Mayor Peck and doing what you need to do. I mean, I appreciate that.
Well, the first time she called, I said no.
I hear you. I hear you. But I know it's probably even worse than being city council, hearing all the negativity from people who complaining about RTD and somewhat little power you have over that besides, here, how do I say it? Just translating our voices to the board. And so you say you've only been on for 3 months, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little chaotic, I know. So I just want to say thank you for being on the board.
Thank you.
And also, I also want to make sure that we do have to be cognizant of RTD. When we think about the leadership with RTD, and I know I think I may have met her before, but I don't know her. But thinking about RTD has almost 3,500 employees. And I do know that that there have Phil and I both go to NADA, and we heard the complaints and the issues with the drivers being targeted and abused.
Yes.
And that's why they couldn't keep drivers. People would quit. And so they increased the pay wage, and I think they're making like $25 an hour now.
More than that.
More
yes.
than that now,
Yes,
right?
with
As
benefits.
drivers, yeah. So, but I thought it was after COVID, and these drivers were getting spit on,
Yes.
hit, and all these things. And I wouldn't want to be a driver either. You have
Yes.
PTSD after that. So I appreciate RTD doing what they needed to do to try to get more drivers. And I know they got a new police chief.
Yes.
Did you all hire the police chief?
He's going to be sworn in tomorrow.
Okay. Did the board hire him or did
No, our
the
GM, our
oh,
CEO
Oh,
did.
okay. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So I hope that's better outcome.
Yes.
The other thing I was thinking, would you say that it would be more beneficial for the board to have a letter sent, an email sent prior to in talking about everything we were talking about. And then those of us who can show up to speak, invited to be heard. So having some representation as an entire advisory board, and I'm pretty sure city council probably could do the same, send those letters in prior to, and then also as many of us that can attend in person, we will do that. I think if any of us plan on attending in person, we should coordinate what we're going to talk about, because 3 minutes go very quick. So maybe somebody can talk about rail, somebody can talk about the LX, somebody could, whatever. I think if we do, I think that's something we can coordinate. It will be more impactful that way.
Yes.
The other thing I do want to bring up, and I know they all have said really good things, I'm really kind of, I appreciate what you said just a few moments ago about CSU and CU. The opportunity of us having the rail and everything will be more beneficial. I really kind of, I don't know. I know the customer segment is is the school, the university, the students, but I also feel like the city of Longmont is just as big as the city of Boulder. And for RTD to allocate their time around the students of Boulder, because the city of Longmont employees also have eco passes. So you know what I'm saying? There are many organizations that have eco passes as well. And I feel like, again, we're disregarded because they told us this, RTD told us this when they were here, because I brought this up. Like, I couldn't even get a bus on a Saturday night coming back to Boulder. I literally had to get an Uber. And because the buses don't go past a certain time on Saturdays. But on Sundays, they do, because of the students for CU.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Okay.
But what about taxpayers?
Yes.
Most of those students are not residents and probably don't pay taxes. They pay their tuition, but you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and so we're forgotten. And we're the ones who, when those students leave and go back home to their state, hopefully some of them stay, but, we still have to get transportation back and forth.
Yes.
And so that's a huge issue right there. And I was glad they brought that, he said that. I was like, wait, hold up, what? Yeah, so I get left in the dark at 11 o'clock at night and have to pay $80-some or more for an Uber to come home, because there's no buses that take me back to Boulder. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I
So
do.
you're stuck. And that's not a good feeling, and that's unsafe.
I also think a lot of our directors don't know how large Longmont is. And that's another thing I try to tell them, that we're about the same size as Boulder. And they're surprised.
Well, shame on them. To be honest, you can't. How are you going to be a board of director and you talk about the cities that you serve and the services that you provide to the cities that you you serve, and you don't know any information about that city?
Well, I'm speaking about the directors. Now, some of our planning staff should know better, because we've got staff that just focus on Boulder County. And it does seem like they focus a lot on the city of Boulder and not enough on East Boulder County.
Right.
So.
Okay. So, did you say that was a good idea for us to have a letter separately?
Yes,
okay.
That would be very good, to be helpful.
Okay.
And then also to something that you talked about in terms of security, I did want to mention that RTD right now is in the process of hiring 150 police officers. And so we're up to, I think, about 90. And you already are seeing increased enforcement, especially on the rail lines and certain bus lines. And, there have been a lot of comments, correctly so, talking about drug deals or fentanyl on the rail line. And so now that we are bringing in police officers and also fare collectors, they will be also making sure that our fares will be enforced. We're already seeing great improvement. It's really made a difference already.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Well, I do know that I can only imagine how tough of a job being the CEO, general manager, coming in a huge organization right after COVID.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
and kudos also for the assessment too that was done. As far as management style, I don't know if that has helped the organization. I saw that it was somewhere in the news that she had a organization assessment on how she managed.
Yes, that
So
was
I-
last spring.
Yeah, I don't know if that has helped any.
I don't think many of the newer directors have read it. I've read maybe half of it. I need to go back and look at it again.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, thank you again
Well,
for
thank
coming,
you.
taking out some
Thank you.
extra time
course.
and answering our questions and providing information.
Yes.
Appreciate
And please don't hesitate to call me, text me, email me, whatever.
Okay.
Because, my job, I know, is to serve our constituents here. And we need better service. And I am working on it. Give me a little bit more time. I hope to have a few good things happen, but we'll see. So we try. We keep trying. Don't give up.
Thank you.
So,
Great, thank you.
okay. Well, thank you.
Very quickly, we have Kaylee Fallon to do some, my cat, yeah. Kaylee Fallon is here to give us a quick report on Ride Longmont service. Yeah, I was going to say.
Hi, good evening. So just a couple of quick updates for this past month in April on how Ride Longmont is performing. So since the start of the launch of the service in December, we have hit the 27,000 ride mark, and we are at about the 6-month mark of service. So we're looking at about 27,000 rides per 6 months. For April specifically, the month, we had 6,021 completed rides. We had 295 riders that completed 5 or more bookings. So speaking to those folks who continue to take the service, we actually had 587 new accounts that were created in April. So that kind of speaks to the fact that folks are still learning about the service and still downloading the smartphone application and still trying it out, which is great to see. Our peak ridership day was on Wednesday, April 9th. We had 256 rides that day. So we are still seeing an average of about 200 rides per weekday, and then that dips down to about 80 to 100 rides on the weekend. So no big changes there. That's been pretty steady since the launch of the service. We are seeing wait times go up just a little bit. The average wait time for folks in April was about 20 minutes. Again, we are shooting for that 15-minute wait time. So we just have seen demand skyrocket, and so folks are waiting a little bit longer, but we are looking into addressing that. And then really no changes in terms of the average ride time or distance. We saw 13 minutes average ride time in April, and that was an average of 4 miles for the distance. Again, the average walking distance or rolling distance to your pickup location, no real change in that, about 300 feet that folks need to walk to meet the vehicle. And then the average ride rating continues to be 4.9 out of 5 stars for those rides that do get rated. So we are continuing to pursue avenues of funding to expand the service and make sure that the service continues. The RTD Partnership Program grants are actually due this week, so we are pursuing that grant for 26 through 28 funding, and hopefully we'll be able to extend the longevity of the service using some of those partnership dollars. And with that, I can answer any questions if there's any.
Do you have any data on whether when someone gets on a ride and then the time that they the predicted time increases because there's more pickups along that route. Do you have data about the estimated time versus the actual time of that?
Yeah, I don't
That makes
believe
sense.
that we have access to that on our portal. Again, they just give us the average ride time is 13 minutes. So you're looking at a person in the vehicle for an average of 13 minutes. I'm not quite sure if we have the data on increasing the estimated time. If that's something that you all are really interested in, I'm happy to reach out to the operator to see if they have that data.
Yeah, just on my experience on taking it, that was an issue for me. And I think I've heard from others that, like, you think there's going to be getting there at a certain time, and then time keeps getting added due to various reasons. But having that data maybe would be helpful so that you can kind of understand why people are taking the service or not, and, just a better picture of what's happening.
Yeah, and just to clarify, are you speaking to you're in the vehicle and you are getting delayed to your drop-off location, or you're waiting for the vehicle to pick you up and that wait time keeps increasing?
Both.
Both, okay. Yes, we've definitely heard, unfortunately, the wait times, just because, like I said, the demand has skyrocketed. So we are trying to address that. And then I will look into when you're actually in the vehicle, the times increasing. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All that sounds really cool and great news. I just had one question because I ran into a friend, and they had trouble getting, and I think it got fixed because I was trying to look it up if I could type in Front Range Community College, but he was having a hard time who depends on ride or RTD bus system, et cetera, because he cannot drive. Has that been fixed?
Yeah, was this a recent occurrence?
Yeah, couldn't get picked up at Front Range and couldn't order a ride to get to Front Range. So,
Okay.
so there's just for whatever reason, that pocket of Longmont decided not to show up on the app.
Yeah, no, thank you for letting me know. That was an issue previously, and I
Okay.
thought we had solved it with the
cool.
vendor.
No,
but
it was a conversation a week ago, so
Okay.
so it might have been fixed. So.
No, I'll look back into that because it was a
Okay.
few months ago and it should
Okay.
have been fixed, but it sounds like maybe the bug has reappeared in the software.
Okay.
So thank you for letting me know. I will follow up with them on
Okay,
that.
thank you.
Oh, it's me. Okay. Thank you for providing the update and all the information. I just have a question. Can we somehow put on the website or the app, both, that due to being in high demand, that the wait times may alter, it may increase or decrease or something like that? I think that's very important for people to understand that and see that visual that, it may, even though the average time for them to pick me up is 20 minutes, it may be 30 minutes. So for people to see if it's over 20 minutes, maybe I need to use an alternative route or mode of transportation. But I think for us to be more really transparent, because this is going, you all are doing awesome, and I appreciate it, but I think we do need to be transparent, because if you have 587 new members, people who are subscribing to take this, then I do think we need to be more transparent so these people won't get disappointed and won't use it again.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback. That's an excellent idea. We can certainly ask them to either add something to the website. They also have the ability to put push notifications through the smartphone. So maybe on like peak commute hours or something, we can push a
Yes.
message. We're experiencing a high demand, and you may do longer wait times. So I will ask them to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. I love data, so this was right up my alley. Really exciting. Yeah, 587 new accounts. That's huge. Nice work, and 4.9 out of 5 stars. I did try using the app last Thursday at 3:30, and I don't know what happened, but it just said no routes found. So I don't know if you get that message during peak time and there's not enough vehicles to support the service. Can that be changed? Because it was a very common route that I was going, and I was like, wait, is that not a normal route, or is there just not enough vehicle service? So maybe you all can figure out if it's peak time in the app. Maybe it just says something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is the issue. So 3:30, we're seeing schools get out. Lots of kids are taking it to get home. So it is a peak hour during the during the weekday. So that's why it showed up, was there's just no availability. But I totally agree. It is confusing messaging. We've gotten that feedback from folks as well. What does that mean? And I've asked the operator about it. So I will follow up with them to see if there's any way they can change that and make it more clear that it's just full. And it's not like the vehicles aren't on the road or anything like that. It's just there's no availability. So.
Right. And thanks for bringing up school kids. I know there's not a way to book this in advance, but for some of our riders who actually depend on the service because they don't have other modes of transportation, is there a feature in the future where we could schedule something in the future? Because somebody going to school or to a doctor's appointment might depend on it and might need that confirmation that it is going to show up.
We're asking folks that have those kind of needs to be able to call that Flex Ride service, which is the underlying RTD on-demand service, which does have that scheduling capabilities. So a lot of folks are using those for the school route, for the school trips. We wish there would be more. And then there's a lot of folks who are using it for the doctor's appointments, like a regularly scheduled one.
What's the age limit for the Flex Ride?
There is no, it's the same, I believe, as what we're using on the Ride Longmont, which is if you're over 13, you can use it by yourself. But I think you have to have an account, so part of that is account based.
Sure. And then, is there any future plans to add more vehicles to the fleet?
Yes, definitely. Just because we have been looking at the demand and we know that that's there. It just depends on the availability of funding. We have asked the operator to give us a cost estimate on how much it would cost to add another vehicle, and just adding one single vehicle was about $500,000. And that wasn't just because of the vehicle. You're also looking at an increase in service hours, an increase in driver hours. So it's not that the physical vehicle costs $500,000, but that was just their estimate. So it is pretty expensive to expand the fleet. With that being said, like I mentioned, we are going after that RTD partnership funding for this round. So hopefully with an increase, if we can get that funding, then we can definitely talk about how expanding might look. And if it's not increasing the fleet size, maybe it's increasing hours of operation, things like that. So we're definitely aware of that. We definitely want to do that. It's just budget constraints. So
maybe some of that $21 million can be used to expand the fleet.
And we have, I think Phil has done a really great job of talking to RTD about, how utilized FlexRide is, and, is there room there to maybe kind of channel that FlexRide funding into Ride Longmont instead. So I think Phil's been kind of championing those conversations, and we'll hopefully in the future see what happens with that. So.
But I do want to congratulate you all. It is a great program, and hopefully we can continue to see this momentum and the growth of this service. So thank you all.
Sorry.
Thank you so much for the update, Kaylee. It's a great service, I think, and it's great to hear that there's so much demand for it. My question is, are you or is anyone doing scenario planning for expanding Ride Longmont without depending on additional RTD funding? What about expanding the system with a higher fare? I mean, it's such an incredibly low fare now, but could we get more service and more reliable service if we were willing to pay a little bit more? I don't know if that would mean a two-tier type of Ride Longmont or how that would work out, but it seems to me that a lot of people would be willing to pay more than $2 a ride to get around town reliably.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're doing is we're going to give it a full year of work before we start evaluating fare increases, because we don't think that's fair to the public to say it's a $2 ride, and we've been selling that for a number of months prior to the start, and so then change it without having a full year of data under our belt. Makes sense. So we'll look at it in December is the plan right now. So we're looking at checking out, but you're absolutely right. The the fares can certainly be adjusted, and that could be part of it, but it's a very small percentage of the overall costs, but it does bring back some revenue, so it's nice.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We're going to quickly go to Jim here. Yep, we're going to get him going on the whole presentation regarding the CIP for 2026 through 30 and all your transportation projects. So this was meant to be the star of the show, but I think we've lost a little glimmer here. But
good evening, Chair Lehner, board members. Jim Angstadt, Director of Public Works and Engineering. This evening we wanted to provide you some information on the proposed 2026 to 2030 capital improvement program. The budget for the 26 and beyond budget is, the process is just beginning. We in Transportation, along with the rest of the city departments, have submitted our capital requests. And tonight I just wanted to give you a brief overview of those requests for the street fund and the Transportation Community Investment Fee, TCIF fund. Just a little background info for as part of the city's CIP. The planning framework, this covers the capital infrastructure needs for the next 5 years. And a capital project's defined as a new, a replacement of, or improvement to any infrastructure in the city. When the final document comes out, it will include funded, partially funded, and unfunded projects. And it's important to note that the budget it's a very fluid document. So our CIP, we do yearly revisions, which go through that planning process, but there are also, throughout the year, there are revisions to the budget through amendments and requests from various other funds or some shifting of dollars around. So it's not necessarily, when you see it, it's a snapshot in time. It is not a stagnant document. It is very fluid. So what you see here tonight is our first pass at it. Projects and numbers are subject to change, but this is what the transportation staff is looking to do. Focus would be on the 2026. As you get into outer years, they are more subject to change for both funding and the projects. Project selection is primarily coming from council direction through some of our guiding documents, the Transportation Mobility Plan, Main Street Corridor Plan, Vision Zero. Other factors are also our bridge assessment reports, asset management plans, crash reports, and also public and departmental requests. Funding for our transportation system is primarily through the 3/4 cent sales and use tax. There is also state highway use tax dollars, permit fees, and then grants are some of the other revenues that are in the street fund. The street fund is primarily to fund transportation related improvements, maintenance, and operational needs. And then the TCIF fund, which is levied on new construction. Basically, developers pay that fee for arterial, street, and intersection improvements. That is embedded in code and in our financial policies. It has been used and continues to be used for capacity improvements, but capacity is also defined to move multimodal and transit as well. Some of the components of our budget, I'm going to throw a lot of numbers at you. So we start with a working capital, is basically the leftover dollars from the previous year. We have revenues totaling, in 26, we're looking at about $30 million, $30.5 million in revenues. We're showing 37 in expenditures, 19.7 million in capital, and about 18 million in operating. There is a reserve requirement for our operating of about 6% of operating that we hold back in case there's any issues, emergencies. And that leaves in this fund for 2026 remaining funds of about $343,000. Again, these are estimated numbers based on projected revenues and projected expenses. So they are subject to change. The TCIF is starting with about 2.6 million. We'll have some revenues of about projected 858,000. Expenditures are about 3.1 million with a difference of about 405. The transportation projects we're focusing on in 2026, and I have more details on each of these. TRP1, our asphalt pavement management program. TRP11, the transportation system management, or TSM. We are continuing to fund railroad quiet zones. The First and Main Transit Station is slated as a transportation project, although there is no expenditures out of the street fund. That fund is funded through an agreement with RTD, who is funding, I believe, about 16 million of that. Coffin Street busway improvements, that continues for the next section in 2026. We have included a project for Pace Street improvements that is currently under design. That project was previously embedded in TRP 001, but it went a little bit beyond just a pavement management. And I can explain that when we get to that slide. We have included a project for the Justice Center that cropped up just recently, and I'll explain that one. And then we have a project we've showed to you before, the multi-use trail from Union Reservoir, which is PRO 213, which is being basically managed by the Parks Department. Asphalt pavement management program. This is our citywide asset management program. Includes asphalt rehab with concrete repairs, which are adjacent to the roadway. The asphalt rehab could be a complete rebuild of the roadway. It could be a mill and resurface. It includes also crack seal, as well as it could also include chip seal. We use this program has opportunities to improve multimodal. On a number of roads we're going to repave. We look at bike lanes. We look at changing. It includes some Vision Zero components as well. We may narrow up lanes with striping that we've just repaved. And it also includes other components of the system. We're looking at a couple of bridge expansion joint rehab projects in this year's budget. One will carry over into 2026. Our data for that drives the asphalt rehab is our pavement condition index. Every few years we evaluate all of our roads and basically put a number to them. And that will dictate kind of where they would fall in what type of rehab we may undertake. There are no external revenue sources for this. In other words, no grants. This is strictly funded through the street fund. Status currently, we are just beginning our rehab, so that construction is ongoing. Transportation system management. The network of projects in this fund include our safety improvements, multimodal improvements, neighborhood traffic mitigation, some traffic signals, ADA compliance, and then this is where we're embedding our Vision Zero for the 26 year. We've had some discussions in the future that once our action plan is complete, Vision Zero, we may create a totally separate CIP for Vision Zero, and then that would be funded accordingly. Again, there are no external revenue sources in this one. We do in 26 have 2 or 3 projects, 2 for construction, 1 for design. We are putting in a pedestrian signal at 17th and Northwestern. Currently in design with construction slated for 26. And then we are undertaking an access management program on Ken Pratt Boulevard, just west of Main Street. That section of roadway is in our crash analysis as the highest segment of roadway, the most crashes. It is in our high crash index, and it has been requested by public safety to take on that project there. It's small scale, it's only a couple hundred feet, but it will eliminate left turns coming out of those plazas where traffic tends to back up off of coming off of Main Street on Ken Pratt. So we'll move forward with that. That will require a little bit of kind of an engagement with the businesses to inform them of the project. So we'll be seeing that early next year, probably a couple of public meetings is what we anticipate. And then 9th Avenue, there is a pedestrian bridge along the north side of 9th Avenue, just west of Lashley. It is over the Spring Gulch number 1. That ped bridge is on its last legs. So we have been asked by Parks, who identified it, to take that on, and that is embedded in the TRP 11. We're continuing railroad quiet zones. Package 1 is underway. They began construction at 17th Avenue today. So they are, after they complete that, they'll be moving down to 9th, and then 3rd Avenue and Longs Peak. Trying to work through the Package 2, which would be 4th, 5th, 6th, 21st, and Terry Street. We're working to get that, finalize the legal agreements with BNSF and get that out to bid later this year. So there is an external revenue source. We do have a federal grant of $4 million. That haven't heard that they're going to pull that back yet, so we're continuing to work forward on the project, and as soon as we have expenses, we will request reimbursement. The First and Main Transit Station, the focus for our transportation group is building the section of Coffin Street between First and Boston. The overall project will include the RTD Transit Hub for bus rapid transit. Extension, I indicated we are working on the extension of Coffin Street. That will have ped and bike facilities. The external revenue source is the RTD, $16.4 million. We are continuing to work on design of the roadway, hoping to have something out to bid later this year or early in 26 with construction in 26 for the roadway portion. We're still working through public-private partnership for the garage and anything else that they want to build there. But there are discussions ongoing with several developers in regards to development in that area. Kaufman Street Busway is also being funded in 26, the continuation of it for that section of roadway between 2nd Avenue and 1st Avenue. It's the last piece. Currently, progress is they're ahead of schedule, driving to get it done before the deadline or before the contract expires in next year. So hopefully we'll have good news by the end of this year. It is multimodal improvements combined with asset management. Our design for the next section is nearly complete, and construction continues. That's included in the grant for the 2nd to 9th Avenue up above. We threw it all together, Phil. Yeah, it is grant funded in part. Phil got us $7.65 million. So not enough. Project Pace Street improvements, TRP 140. This is a section of Pace Street from 9th Avenue to 17th. It is funded from the street fund. We also have dollars in TCIF for this, as well as the storm fund. Significant drainage improvements will be undertaken. This is a shot looking south. To the south, to the right is the King Super. That is their main drive, or their right in, right out driveway. And you can see the drainage collects there, so we are working to repair that. And you also see a small section of asphalt curbing there. That curb is going to be replaced with concrete curb and gutter. We're going to widen the road out, provide more bike lanes, enhance bike lanes, the buffered bike lanes. And then we're having several crossings, controlled crossings, on the roadway as well. So we're providing multimodal improvements as well as asset management. We got to repave the whole road. The final project we're showing, or one of the final ones, is TRP 141, excuse me, this is the Justice Center. This is located at the Safety and Justice Northwest parking lot, just at the end of Kimbark Street. This is calling for the replacement of structural walls along 3rd Avenue and the alley. The picture on the right shows the old timber wall that has been failing for a number of years. Public Works put up the rather large blocks of stone to support the wall until we can undertake a replacement. The street fund, because the walls do support both the alley and 3rd Avenue, the street fund will be funding, we're proposing to fund 25% of the project. It's about a $1.2 million replacement. We've had 325, I believe, in the budget currently. Some will be funded through storm drainage, and then Safety and Justice and Parks will be funding the remaining. That's a separate project, which hasn't been approved yet. There's also, in case you hear, there's also discussions of an additional parking deck to go over the existing parking lot. City manager is currently working with a local developer to see what that will take and cost. That funding will be coming from LDDA and the general fund, but there hasn't been a signed agreement yet. The last project we want to present is PRO 213, the multi-use trail from Union Reservoir to Adam Farm. We are showing it in the budget to fund the match for the grant out of TCIF. What you do not, we call it partially funded because the grant has not been finalized and we don't have an approved grant agreement. Because of the whole fiasco with grants, the city manager has directed us that if we don't have a signed agreement, we're not putting it into a budget. So that agreement, we don't show that whole project shown as in the numbers. We call it out as partially funded. So the location is along County Road 26 from Union Reservoir through to the Adam Farm. The first phase will get us there along the north side of County Road 26. Future phases will get us connected to the high school and then south into the state park. I also wanted to present the 2026 to 23 street funding. This shows all of as of Friday, what has been the requests on the street fund. Most of the PRO project and the TRP projects were all proposed by the transportation team. There are some public building funds being shown for municipal buildings. And then there's also the TCIF fund funded out for the 5 years. Majority of the funds are in the first few years, and then the fund is almost in the red by 2029. So we're not showing any expenses out of that yet. Again, that will be could be dictated by new revenues. Depends on what we see in development. And that was all I had. As I indicated, we are beginning the budget process. We wanted to present this earlier, or as early as we could, as CIP was just submitted a week ago. This is the earliest we could fit it in. But again, we go through about a 3-month process before it gets presented to council at the end of August, beginning of September for their comment. So we still have not yet submitted any of the operating requests. The operating numbers I did note earlier, the 18 million, as part of our budget planning, we take last year's number and assume about a 5% increase, and that's what that number reflects. And we usually, unless we have some large requests, we usually are pretty good in that with that planning. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Thanks for the presentation. Always love it. Lots of data. For the train connection for Boston, was that on the CIP for 2025 or is it for 2026?
So That is currently funded in the 2025 budget. It will carry over into 2026, so we do show some contingency budgeted in 2026 out of TCIF for the Boston Avenue crossing.
Okay, cool. For the quiet crossings, so for that crossing in particular, the train normally parks between Ken Pratt and 287. Would that mean the train doesn't park there once that connection is open, or would that be blocked? I don't know if that's a Phil question or not, but
This came up in the PUC hearing. There will be times when they may be stacking trains there. We are pushing them to use their yard on the east side of Martin. So, whether we can get direction out of the PUC or not, BNSF tends to do whatever they want. So we may see that at times.
sure. Since BNSF can do whatever they want, the train has been here a long time. We're a train town. The trains were here first before us. Until we get all the quiet zones, who do I make comments to about the train conductors blowing their horns differently? Because at 5 o'clock in the morning on the other day, every single crossing, the train conductor was just holding the horn. And I love the train, and we're a train town. But who do we talk to about consistency about train noises?
You can certainly forward that email to an email to our office. We will forward it on to BNSF,
Okay.
and I can provide you the BNSF. They have an email website where you can file complaints. You can also, I think, file them with the FRA.
Okay.
We have that information. I think we embedded it in an email a few years ago, and I'd have to see if it's still current. But we can get that to you.
Cool.
We can send it to the whole board.
Yeah, thanks. Just out of curiosity, how many miles of roads are you maintaining now, or projecting to maintain in 2026?
I'm not sure of the projections in 26, but currently we maintain 356 miles of roads, centerline miles of roads.
Wow, that's a lot. Kaufman is looking great, by the way. I love it. When do you think it might be done? Because it is moving really quickly. I was very pleasantly surprised.
We're hoping if they can get enough work done, they should be doing final asphalt before the end of the year. Just depends on what they hit in the southern portion. They hit a water line tonight. I was checking emails, so depending on if they can get it in before November, we hopefully will have all the asphalt down.
Cool.
That's going to be the controlling factor.
Looks great. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I could just see a conference center by the train station on Kaufman. You know how you all had the apartments and garages? If we can get a conference center there, people won't have to drive here for events or meetings, and especially now we got the hotel, downtown Longmont. That would be amazing. So if there's anyone, you let me know what I need to do about that. But if there's anyone that is proposing to help with building one, I think that would be an awesome location to have a conference center. Jim, why you look at me like that?
We build roads. We don't build conference centers.
Well, I know that, but I'm just saying, you all have people say stuff to you all the time.
The redevelopment manager would be my best answer would be to engage with her. Would be, I would think, or one of the assistant city managers. I would suggest we start with Sandy because I think she's overseeing that in the short term.
Awesome.
That may be a good conversation to have.
Yeah.
Is it Zach? Or it might be Zach. It's either Zach or Zach Artist or Sandy.
Or both.
Wasn't sure.
I'll just do both.
Yeah.
They're right next to one another anyway, so. Thank you.
Do you have an estimate of how many dollars are put towards just bike and ped infrastructure, new infrastructure?
Because we embed our kind of the bike and ped infrastructure in in our asphalt rehab. I don't have numbers readily available because we don't break them out.
Could you do that?
Might take a little doing, but we can certainly start pulling those numbers out.
Yeah, I asked about it last year, and that was your same response last year.
We can bring it, well, when we're bringing the budget back, because we're not asking any action tonight. But when we bring the budget back in, probably in August, to finalize it, when we ask for, for the recommendation to move it forward, we'll have those available.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
So the TMP obviously was finished up. How much of the CIF is now being, how much of the TMP is being integrated in the CIP? Like, because that was finished up and now you can kind of start implementing some of those plans. And I was just wondering how many of these projects have either been created as a result of the TMP or have been kind of reworked as a result of that.
We have one project that is noted in the TMP that would be undertaking in later years, which I believe is 2030. It's going to be starting to look at a roundabout at either 17th and Airport or Clover Basin and Fordham. Within the next few years, the street fund will be challenged to fund to meet the needs for asphalt rehab, and then with limited dollars for some other projects. So we really didn't add anything into the later years. We've got dollars for Vision Zero and some of the safety improvements. We've got some for some transportation system management reserve, but we have not had a really strong look at the TMP to start funding those projects.
Okay. Is that going to happen next year? Or?
As we get each year advances, we're going to start instituting the TMP and the Vision Zero action plan with more specific projects. That is our intention, yes.
Okay. Because I remember there's like specific, like you have numbered lists of like, this is the most important down to least important for many of the different categories. Like, these are the most pedestrian areas that we need to fill in for paving, for example, that have missing sidewalks. Those types of things. None of those have been included, right, in this?
We did not. We took out, we unfunded or defunded missing sidewalks this year. It was just, that was one of the lower priorities when we looked at it. That we just, to balance it, one of the things as we submit all of this, we put it all into our fund statement, and then we look at the bottom line. And we were cutting, we cut about, I want to say 5 to 6 million, maybe 8 million out of asphalt rehab to balance everything. So we really weren't looking to put in new projects this year.
Okay. Because, I mean, with Vision Zero, pedestrians are the highest.
And we funded that to the, in later years, we have about $500,000 a year in there. Next year, we're going to show, because we have some other Vision Zero related projects, the PED signal is a Vision Zero project. We've only funded 200,000, but that PED signal is about 400,000. And then the other pedestrian improvements are adding a little bit more to that. And I can share you the breakout of the TSM budget if I can send that separately. That's just a simple spreadsheet with the plan that shows the numbers that we put into the budget.
Okay, thank you. I was just wondering how far you've got along on the Pace Street improvement. You mentioned a buffer bike lane, and I was just wondering if you had any more further details about how that would kind of work out.
We're providing buffered bike lanes on both sides of Pace Street, from 9th to 17th. Sorry.
Like how wide are they going to be?
We're the newer standards, which we're still working on, have been approved. We'll have a 5-foot bike lane extending from the edge of asphalt. Not the current standards that we've been used for years headed to the edge of the gutter. We changed that. No one rides in the gutter. So it's a 5-foot bike lane from the edge of asphalt and then we have a 2 to 3 foot section of buffering
Are there any other new bike lanes being added as part of your asphalt? I know you repaint and sometimes you add them. I was just wondering if
So we have not, for 26, we have not started that work yet. We begin that work in the fall. I'd have to reevaluate or talk to our staff to look at what we're doing in 25. I think we're doing a section of Fordham, which was similar to last year's, where we took out the center turn lane and put in buffered bike lanes on either side. I'm pretty sure that's one of them, but I'm not sure if there's any others where we're adding any bike lanes. Do you want to chime in?
Well, you asked earlier about the transportation mobility plan, and this is where it gets into the programs.
Mm-hmm.
So that change of philosophy, that change of policy that came from city council and the public is reflected then back into these projects as we're starting to move through them. So I think that's where you see the TMP really show that piece of policy. And then when the Vision Zero plan starts to go as into an action plan mode, and we start to reflect from that, those will actually be projects on the ground that the TMP reflects. So just a little clarity.
Okay, thank you. I guess my bigger question about the TMP is like, with the changing of perspective, with heads being at the top, eventually I would imagine that the funding would also reflect that, because most of the funding is still going towards car-centric kind of infrastructure.
Yeah, it's going to take a full 5 years for us to make that full flip of policy.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you, Jim, for that presentation. Just one question about the CIPs, the Ken Pratt and Hover, because that was it the RAISE grant that got us, to fund that? How long is that project probably expected to take? Because conceptually, I can't even think about the design. I get lost by looking at those images.
Yeah, it's planned that project would start design later this year,
Okay.
and then go into construction early to middle of 26, and be completed by 27 is the hope. I think that's going to be tough to do, but that project is a design build project, so it's moving very quickly, as you can see along the corridor. So this is kind of that third phase. The first phase starts basically J Road and closer to Boulder. And then the middle phase is more of that State Highway 52 piece, and then Niwot. And then that phase 3, that's that project piece number 3 is this phase into Longmont.
So the hope is to be completed by the time BRT is kind of coming online.
Trying to get it all done by 2027, and the first and main piece may be the hang up on that. So I think we've talked a little bit about that.
Yeah. And then second question, and I think this is what would help probably other board members, and I know board member Carl Colfer brought this up, is just kind of looking at design standards and kind of educate us about what the standards are, and then how that process has changed over time and years. I think that would be a worthwhile study session or something later in the year. So then when we hear these projects, we can actually conceptualize how improvements are being made.
Yeah, we'd probably do that through our Vision Zero updates.
Okay.
It's probably more appropriate forum for those. But as far as we're going through new projects, using our existing accepted city codes, we're able to accept new standards that have been approved through the new MUTCD, as well as we've been adopting some NACTO standards, PROAG, and then anything that CDOT updates, we're able to actually incorporate that into our new designs.
Okay. Yeah, it's all cool stuff. I think it would, for members of the public and then also us, it will just kind of reiterate some, because every project, there's always going to be someone who's going to say, well, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do this? And I think, having clarity on our end would be helpful as well.
Just real quick, you do have a study session planned for September that talks about STRODs and design standards.
Right,
so
cool.
We've got that programmed for you if you'd still want to continue with that. So in your work program.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for the information, Jim. You may recall that each year that I've been a member of this board and we've reviewed the CIP, I have pointed out and raised concerns about street tax revenues being allocated to municipal building renovations and improvements. And I see that that type of allocation is continuing with the 2026 to 2030 CIP that we had our first look at tonight. But tonight I want to ask you a slightly different question, and that is, are TCIF revenues also allocated to municipal building renovations?
No, they are not.
I have never seen that designation on the CIPs, so why not? If the taxpayers who voted to tax themselves for street improvements, if those revenues can be used for municipal building improvements, why can't the fees that developers pay also be used?
So, as I understand it, I would look to how the rules were originally established and what is embedded in city code. City code defines that the TCIF can only be applied to arterial roads for capacity improvements.
So have you ever gone before developers and told them that the city transportation division employees who supervise the construction of those improvements deserve to have better facilities, and therefore some of those TCIF revenues are going to be used for building improvements?
That's not my decision to make. That we follow the city code. It's embedded in the city code. Why I would never go to a developer to tell him that I'm going to do that. It's not up to a developer.
Well, who made the decision to use the street tax revenues for building improvements?
That's way back in history. At some point, it was city manager may have made it, the finance director. Okay, it was in my opinion, and I believe finance as well. We are in compliance with the city code. Okay, not all, the city code is very clear that the three-quarter sales and use tax, what it can be used for. Okay, but there are other funds that go into the street fund that are used for operational needs. And public buildings fall under an operational need.
Did you just say that the street fund doesn't consist just of the sales tax revenues?
No, there are other funds, or there are other revenues that are included in the street fund. Not
And
just the
it's all
three-quarters.
separated out so that
The
street tax revenues aren't used for the municipal building improvements?
I don't know that we break it out per se, but we are in compliance with code in that the funds that we expend for public buildings usually do not go over the amounts of other taxes that come in to the street fund. So we see revenues of we're projecting about 24 million of sales and use tax in 2026. There are $6 million of other revenues that will be coming in. Some of those are grants. Some of it is highway use tax. Some of it is automobile tax. If I bring this in front of our finance group, what they're going to tell me is those other dollars can be used for municipal buildings in accordance with one item in city code. So revenues from the street fund can be used for operational needs. Operations are buildings. The sales and use tax, which is clearly defined in another section of city code, okay, can only be used for improvements and other things. This is the list. I can get you a copy of the city code if you're interested. It's like one page in section 4.04.130.
Phil has already provided that, so that won't be necessary.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Ready for our last item. This was going to be a short meeting, by the way. Anyway, just real quickly, we have one action item for you to consider tonight, and it should be a quick one. What we're really doing is asking for 2 volunteers, as you can see. Unfortunately, Board Member Wickland cannot volunteer, but the 4 of you remaining may volunteer, 2 of you preferably, to be on our interview committees. So if there is interest, we'd love to have 2. If we can get 1, that would be great as well. If all 4 of you want to be part of that, let us know. But we typically do 2. So, Chair Lehner, you are raising your hand in volunteer mode? Okay. Anybody else?
Is there any requirement that I have to be in the States?
No. We just need to have you be available on Teams, and then we record it for the City Council. And this is the first year that I'm understanding that a sitting board member does not need to go through the interview process.
Oh, wow, that's right.
So congratulations. But you cannot sit on the interview panel. Yeah, I think you still have to.
So Phil,
contact City Council.
let's explain the process for
Yeah.
board member Alex. So basically, we have preset questions, 3 or 4.
Yeah, not too many. We try to, everything has to be kept within a half
Yeah.
hour.
And we keep it confidential, and then you just kind of score, grade, and provide it to Phil, and they kind of manage that process. So it's a pretty simple, and what, a half hour?
It has to be a half hour or less. Yes.
There you go.
Phil, how many people applied?
Can you? Oh, now you're.
How many people applied this time around?
So we've had 3 applications. One of them is sitting next to you. So we have 2 applications that we need to interview.
And
2 applicants, excuse
we
me.
have 2 open seats,
So that'd be 1 hour total time of interview.
but 2 new. 2 new for
We
2
have
new
3
seats.
seats. 2 are full-time, regular member terms ending in 3 years. So June 30th of 2028. And 1 is the Garrison's position that would expire June 30th of 2026. So we have to fill those 3 positions. So you can kind of see how we do this as the top 2 will probably get the longer, and then the last person in that, if we choose to do so, we may choose to keep 1 open as well. I mean, there's a bunch of different things we can recommend. So there's some options.
If I can just jump in, I think it would be appropriate that Board Member Wickland would be going for the longer term, right? And then the other 2 candidates would be those 2, and then we would make that recommendation as to which one.
Correct.
Okay.
That's what was our assumption as well.
Okay. Any questions?
I'm just concerned about the time I'll be on the other side of the pond, so my time difference will be great. And depending on the time of day, I'm happy to potentially contribute.
That's wonderful, and we love to hear that. If there's anybody else who wants to be part of that too and keep our scheduling maybe a little, I think your scheduling is going to be difficult at best, or correct? I mean, I don't want to read too much into that, but it sounds like you're willing to volunteer, but there's going to be some issues, possibly. Yes, we'll sign you up. Thank you. So I would ask just that the board members available, I think everybody can vote on this, that the 2 people we do have is Chair Lehner and Board Member Kalkofer have volunteered, so we'd like to get formal approval from this board of those appointments. Yeah, if you'd like to be an alternate, or is that, or would
Yeah,
you?
let's make her alternate. And let's go ahead and, can we get a motion passed that myself and Board Member Kalkofer will be the primary interviewees, and Vice Chair McKee Burrows will be the, what do we call it, alternate?
Backup.
How's that?
Yes, I move that Chair Lehner and Board Member Kalkofer will be on the interview committee, and the alternate will be Board Member McKee Burrows. So,
Do you have a second? Yeah.
Seconded.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Great.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Any other items, Phil?
Not from staff. No thanks.
Okay. Then I think we can do we want to do comments, or do we want to move a little long and fast and end the meeting? It's your guys' call if everybody wants to chime in. Yeah, go ahead.
I know we've been here a long time, but I think we should discuss whether and in what form the board would want to comment to the RTD board on May 28th. That's coming up quickly, and the only way we can do things, I believe, is as a full board. Phil, correct me if I'm wrong, but the state sunshine laws prohibit us from getting together in small groups to plan activities or anything board-related. Is that correct?
Correct. And we try not to do anything with any kind of board recommendation over emails either. So we don't allow that. We just communicate with you typically, or if you communicate back with us that you can't make a meeting. But other than that, you're
So
correct.
I guess my question is anyone on the board interested in appearing before the RTD board or submitting some kind of formal documentation to them?
I can send an email, but I will be on the other side of the pond. So
You'll be away.
I can participate by sending an email. What I'm for is the train and the bus from here to Denver and here to DIA.
I will also be sending an email. In terms of showing up, it kind of depends on how my next 2 weeks go with my work life. I don't know if I'll be doing 12-hour days anytime soon. So, got that first. But also, I would say I hope everyone encourages more service hours as well. Because, as I always say, it's now 8:30 and we can't get home via RTD.
I will send an email. I could potentially go, but I don't have any way of getting there and back. So that would be my challenge, because I won't have a car available to take me there. So that will be my limiting factor, because we have one car and it's in use at that time.
I'm going to be out of town, so I'll do an email, probably about rail and definitely the AB airport. I think those are two probably critical issues. But I can't make it, unfortunately. I won't be around. Yeah.
I have a question. Like, do we just each individually submit an email, or do we kind of work together to create a holistic message, I guess, or a total message?
Well, that's just it. We can't. So we would have to do it individually on our own. As a board, we can't do it together because
we'd have to do it right now.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
you
that would
could.
take
You
another
could.
hour.
Couldn't we vote now to authorize the individual members of the board to submit emails representing the board as a whole, because we voted to do that at tonight's meeting, related to the issues that we brought up: Skyride, Northwest Rail, improved service between Longmont and Denver.
I was wondering if you wanted to direct the chair to draft that letter for all of you, and that could come from the board, from the chair, if you all wanted to
Well,
You can't work together on this.
no, but we wouldn't be able to submit comments to a draft, would we?
You could submit comments to me, and I could draft it and then give it to the board, the chair to.
Why are you willing to take that on, Steve, to draft it? Okay.
If you, I think you have to agree though now that you will live by that letter, regardless of, you've put together. I think you're all saying the same thing: rail and service to the airport, and then also service hours increase. So if you're willing to live with those three items to be in the letter,
And bring back the LX with
more service
frequent
hours.
service.
Yeah.
We're throwing out. Sorry, we're throwing out too much. So the process, Phil, is board members can send you comments concerning RTD service, wants, and needs for the city of Longmont. You will pass those to me, and then I will write the letter on behalf of the board. Is that correct? Or the email, I should say.
Yes,
Okay.
I can help draft that as well.
Okay. So we can.
So I can give you a letter.
Perfect. Okay. So does everybody kind of have the marching orders then? They can send to Phil thoughts, subjects that they'd like to have discussed. And then Phil will take that information and he and I will put together an email on behalf of the board and the city of Longmont, or I should say, Transportation Advisory Committee, of what we've put together.
And please just send them to me, nobody else.
Yeah.
No,
Exactly. Nobody
no,
else.
Yeah, just Phil Greenwald.
And to be safe, let's just go ahead and do a quick motion and vote so everybody's all on board, so we don't really have anything, blowback wise. So
All right, I move that we as a board authorize individual board members to submit comments to the RTD board to Phil for his transmittal to Chair Lehner to create an email or a letter, probably transmitted by email, on behalf of the entire board.
Correct.
So moved.
second.
Can we discuss first? Because I have a clarifying question. So I think this is all great to do that as an official board, but I also think that we need to get as many individual emails. Can we act individually without saying, I'm officially on the if I'm Alex Kalkoffer, resident of Longmont,
Absolutely.
we can also send that as well?
You can still say, I also happen to be on the Transportation Advisory Board, that's
Okay.
fine as well.
You have that right.
But
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. The more the merrier.
Perfect.
Can we get a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No? Okay. So that's what the game plan is. And to clarify, you're all able to send your own email to that same. Don't share it with anybody else, and it can be on behalf of yourself as a resident, as well as you can, as Phil said, mention that you are a member of the board.
Is there a deadline?
Well, they're meeting on the 28th or 27th, so I would imagine you'd probably want to get it in there, I would think at least 4 or 5 days prior.
Comments to Phil, I mean.
Oh, I would say probably, well, if they're a regular meeting and government body, they probably 5 days prior to their meeting is when they post so we'd probably want to have it in by then, right? 22nd, 21st?
I'll do some checking into into that deadline, but if we could get it in by the 21st,
Yeah.
I think that gives us some time to quickly draft. I mean, drafting the letter is going to be pretty basic, so
Yeah.
we just have to.
So it gives you a little over a week. Okay? Okay. All right. I'm going to pass on the comments since we're almost at 9 o'clock, and I want everybody to at least get home before 10, I guess. Thank you all for sitting through this. Thank you all for your comments and questions. I think it was good. I think it was fruitful with RTD showing up. I think that was good. Jim, appreciate the presentation and the coverage on the CIP. That was all good stuff. We are adjourned. Thank you.